Arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da. Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Today we have New York Times best-selling author Kyle Higgins talking about a brand new Kickstarter project called The Trap that he's working on with NFL star Lance Briggs. Then we'll be joined by actor Jane Slavin talking all about her work on the Big Finish series, Doctor Who, and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors, 4 Hogwarts houses, 1 ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And for those of you just now tuning in for the first time, welcome to Geek to Me Radio. My name is James Enstall. I'm your host. If you've heard us before, fantastic. If not, we bring you a little bit of pop culture every single week with someone from writing, TV, film, gaming, or something to do with comics. We try to make it fun for you as much as it is for me. And with that, let's jump to our first guest. Right now, we've got #1 New York Times best-selling comic writer Kyle Higgins talking about a brand new Kickstarter launch. And you know, if you're listening to the show, we love our Kickstarter launches. Talking about The Trap, which is a co-product of his and Chicago Bears Lance Briggs. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thanks for the time today. It's always exciting. I have it as a personal badge of pride that anybody I've had on my program talks about their Kickstarter. It always gets funded. So I saw just a while ago, you're within striking distance, $10,000 or so to go of your $35,000 goal, and you still got a little over 2 weeks to go. So I have no doubt that you're going to make it.
Well, I'm glad you're so confident. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for me. This is my first Kickstarter, so I wasn't, quite certain what to expect. It's been really, really exciting. It's been a ton of work. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm trying to, I am cautiously optimistic that hopefully with your listeners' help here, we can really put it over the top and get this baby funded. Absolutely. And I guess it's always those nerves, because you've done so much work on so many great titles from DC and thanks. Marvel and Image, to have a seasoned writer, but you've never done a Kickstarter. So it's always kind of, you feel like a little bit like you're out on that branch and you don't know what's going to happen, I guess. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a completely different space from any of the work I've done before. And it's something that is unto itself very much a community. So coming into any community as the new guy or the new person is scary, and you don't know what to expect. And will this community accept me, or will they have zero interest because I haven't been a part of Kickstarter before, Yeah. So all of that was kind of swirling for me, but we really felt like we had a project that is incredibly timely and it's very personal to Lance and to myself as well. And this was a format and a model that was exciting to us, particularly as it relates to the format that we chose. Doing this as an original graphic novel is really exciting from a storytelling standpoint and what that format allows for. But from a logistics standpoint, OGNs are really tough to get off the ground. Sure. And that's where Kickstarter comes in, because there's so much prep time, there's so much lead time that you need to work on what is ostensibly a 120-page book. Whereas if you were doing it as like a monthly comic book release, it would be 20-page chapters, sure, essentially, that would be coming out. But as an original graphic novel, you're not doing that. It will only come out when the whole thing's done, which is, it's 8 to 10 months of work for the creative team. So we thought this was probably the most viable way to get this off the ground. And we're really crossing our fingers here that, like I said, that we'll be able to see it to fruition.
And if you're going to do this for the first time, it's nice to have somebody in your corner like a Chicago Bears 7-time Pro Bowl linebacker, Lance Briggs. That's got to be really comforting to have someone like that in your corner. Talk a little bit about collaborating with Lance on the character of Jalen Robinson and this story, The Trap.
Well, Lance is great. And Lance and I have known each other for 7 or 8 years now. And it was through a shared love of comics that we met. And we stayed in touch over the years. I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan. As Lance's career wound down and he made the decision to retire back in, I think it was 2015, we started talking about whether or not there might be an opportunity to collaborate down the line. And it took a few years, but about 1.5 years ago, we started meeting up regularly in Los Angeles and through phone calls to build out an idea together. And that is the idea that became The Trap. Lance is prolific, not only as an athlete, but as a creator. He is someone that daydreams all the time, has a very, very active imagination and a true love of story and storytelling and the power of it. So when we first sat down, Lance brought notebooks with characters like fully built. And there were some really interesting ideas there, but nothing really was grabbing me from the standpoint of like building a book around, you know? Mm-hmm. And then when we started just talking about life and our different kind of paths and pasts and upbringing, to hear Lance talk about what it was like growing up in Sacramento in the 1980s and the 1990s with his mom was very resonant for me, and the different challenges that he faced growing up in an environment that, you know, was challenging. And being an athlete and having the possibility of a path through some of those challenges in that challenging environment, and the support that the community there provided for him was very, like I said, very impactful for me. And from there, it became a question of, well, what kind of world can we build here where we can highlight some of those issues and some of those challenges, because the best science fiction is allegorical.
Yeah.
And so the setup of The Trap is that it is like I said, it's a 120-page original graphic novel, and it posits a version of the future where Earth has been annexed into this interstellar coalition of planets. But over the generations, for a variety of reasons that you'll see in story, Earth has become something of like the redheaded stepchild of this interstellar coalition. And it's also become a valuable component and location in the interstellar drug trade. So what that does is it creates a setup and a version of the world where problems of marginalized and oppressed communities are now the problems of the entire planet. And it's a way to create a baseline that hopefully allows for readers to relate to some of these challenges and struggles that Lance firsthand witnessed and experienced, but in a way that maybe, because if you didn't live something like this, you would perhaps not have as direct a connection to. That's where the power of fiction comes in, and being able to, again, explore some of that stuff through that lens of empathy and original characters like Jalen Robinson, who Jalen is not Lance, but there's definitely inspiration there from Lance's life and his childhood. So the whole experience has been very, very rewarding. And I love being able to collaborate and to work with other writers and just creators in general, because I've been doing this now full-time, comics, for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to the point where I feel comfortable and confident in what I do as a writer, but now that also means I'm aware of what I do as a writer. And so sometimes you go like, well, how do I broaden my horizons here and broaden my influences? And collaborating and co-writing is a really good way to do that, because you're constantly learning from the other people you're working with. And just because you might do something a certain way doesn't mean that's the only way to do it, narratively or story-wise. But then other times you might have a feeling on something and you're like, I don't think that worked, but I can't quite articulate why. And it forces you to kind of really take a reflective look at like, okay, what is that? Oh, this is actually like a foundational tenet for me of my feelings on storytelling. You know, that's why I don't think this particular thing works. Or if we tweak it to this, it gets us, you know, this, and this. And it's just been a really awesome way to continue to grow and also reflect at the same time.
And we mentioned earlier your collaborations in DC Comics, obviously most notably with Batman and Nightwing, working with people like Scott Snyder. Obviously, that's experience that you were able to draw into, as you just said, this kind of learning process where you're collaborating and you're learning as you go. And I would think then that one's writing would tend to evolve as just a matter of the way you're proceeding.
Yeah, it certainly can. I think if you have any level of self-awareness, that absolutely is possible to happen, because you have to be able to recognize what, like I said, like what you do well or what you tend to do, and then be able to distance yourself from that and go like, okay, but what if I do try it this other way, or the way that this other person or other creator wants to do? Like, okay, could it work? You know, if I step outside of my own personal preferences as a storyteller, what is it about that way that's interesting or exciting? And it's like, oh, can I adopt some of that in my own, you know, work as well?
And when you're working on a Kickstarter like this, obviously the art is essential as well. And you've got, if I'm pronouncing this wrong, I apologize, Danilo Beyruth. And
Danilo Beyruth and Tamara Bonville.
Yeah, exactly. Did they find you? Did you find them? Were they someone you wanted to work with? Were they also someone Lance knew? How did the collaboration with the artists come about? We're going to pause right there, take our first commercial break, come back, and finish our chat with Kyle Higgins. So stand by.
1, 2, 3. We are the best shuffling crew. Shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good. Blowing your mind like we know we would.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to our second segment here on Geek to Me Radio. Talking with New York Times bestselling writer Kyle Higgins. You know him from the Batman books, among many other projects. Talking about his collaboration with Lance Briggs, NFL star, on his new Kickstarter project, The Trap. And before we went to break, we were talking with Kyle about collaborating with artists for this project.
Well, Tamara, I have known for a little while now. Not very well, but we've crossed paths before. And I'm a huge fan of her work. I'm totally a colorist snob when it comes to comics. And so she's always been on my radar here. But the idea of reaching out to her to color this actually came from Danilo. And Danilo is an artist whose work I quite like and have admired for a little bit of time now. I only became aware of it somewhat recently, the last few years, through Joe Prado, his agent. Joe is one of my favorite people in comics. He's an incredible inker. He's also a great talent agent for a lot of artists based out of Brazil. So Eddie Barrows and Tony Silas, and I'm trying to think who else. Paulo Sequeira. I totally butchered his name. Will Conrad. Like, there are a bunch of artists that I've worked with over the years that are actually represented by Joe. So we would interact quite a bit. And so when it came time to find an artistic partner on The Trap, I was talking to Joe about some other projects, and I raised the project to him. I said, is this something that Danilo might have any interest in? Because I just thought it could be such a really interesting stylistic fit for the material that Lance and I were building. I don't want to. I love science fiction, but there's a lot of really generic looking science fiction out there, whether it's in comics or movies or TV shows. And so it became like, how do we find someone who has a really unique and original eye here so that our world and our characters don't just look like every other, dystopian sci-fi project that's ever happened. And Danilo really wanted us to reach out to Tamara, and I was all about that. And then when Tamara sent in the colors on the cover, that was the first image she did. We were all like, holy cow. And Danilo nailed it. He goes, it reminds me of a Mobius piece.
Oh, nice.
And and so that European sci-fi look that they're bringing to the Trap, I just feel, Lance and I both feel incredibly honored and grateful to have such fantastic artistic partners here. And then we're also joined by Hassan and by Sasha Ehead. Hassan is our letterer and Sasha is our designer. And so their integration with Danilo and Tamra also has been really great. And you can really see that in the logo for the Trap and how Sasha designed it to fit the art and actually integrated it into the ink. So you can see some of the wires that are coming through the logo and things like that. That's actually from Danilo's original inks. So it really is a wonderful creative collaboration thus far.
And as a person who has studied film and creative writing, as you did at the University of Iowa, and as we've seen with all these graphic novels and comic books becoming original series on Netflix and Hulu, like Lock and Key, Umbrella Academy, and The Boys, it does beg the question, in the back of your mind, have you thought at all about if this is hugely successful and let's say someone picks it up, have you as a film kind of person thought about who might play Jalen Robinson?
No, I haven't. No, I don't really go down that road very often, because the reality is that there are like 15 to 20 steps that are quite serious that would have to happen before that's even like a point of conversation. Like, so I don't get it. I never really think about actors in that regard. And at the end of the day, like if there was going to be an adaptation of something like The Trap, you're not going to have any say in who's getting cast. That's such a decision. That decision is such a product of like what actors are available and which ones have enough, or which ones do execs feel have enough juice to get people to watch the show. So it's so outside of your control as a creator, especially if you're only doing the comic, which at this point, we're only focused on this original graphic novel.
And like I said, the Kickstarter is doing very well. You're 2/3 of the way there and climbing. As I was watching and kind of scrolling through to take notes, I saw 2 more pledges come across. So it looks like you guys are in good shape. So I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah, every little bit helps. And we've got some really exciting tiers here. We wanted the project to be incredibly accessible. So the first tier is a $10 tier. You get the entire book. It's a digital PDF of the entire book once it's completed. And then beyond that, the best version of the book is the $40 hardcover. It's an oversized hardcover that we're doing. Be a lot of original art in there that won't be reprinted anywhere else. And we have some different original art tiers as well. And then there's the high-end tiers that are very much catered to Chicago Bears, Chicago Bears aficionados. So hopefully there's something for everyone there. And I would just urge any listener that thinks, oh, that kind of sounds intriguing. Please, take a look at the campaign and consider supporting us. And it would be, you will have my eternal gratitude.
And last question before I let you go, we had artists and writers both doing Kickstarters on the show before. They've really loved it. They've said it's hard work. As a first timer to it, what has been the biggest surprise for you about Kickstarter, be it a huge high or low as far as like, I didn't realize it was so much work? Where have you found the kind of levels to be?
It's everything, man. Like it's from how surprisingly challenging shipping is to figure out to just the level of like how to build the tiers and responding to different messages, how to get content out to people on a regular basis here, like updates and you're scared half the time. It's like, oh, am I just spamming people through my social media? It's all just, it's stressful.
Yeah.
So everything ends up feeling, very heightened as a result of that stress. But as you say, like we're about 2/3 of the way there and with any luck, we'll be talking about stretch goals down the line. That would be my dream here.
Perfect. And we'll do everything we can to help you get there. Again, if you're listening to this right now, go to Kickstarter, check out The Trap. You can also find them on Twitter at The Trap. If people want to keep up with you, Kyle, where can they find you on social media and websites and whatnot?
Twitter and Instagram are probably the best. At Kyle D. Higgins. I don't post. I go through phases. I'm posting quite a bit right now. But, Kyle D. Higgins. Perfect.
We'll look forward to seeing how this goes, how it plays out. Like I said, over 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks left, and I think you're going to make it with room to spare. Very excited to hear about The Trap between you and Lance Briggs. Thanks so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
My thanks once again to Kyle Higgins. We're going to take our next commercial break, come back and speak with actor Jane Slavin all about her work in the new upcoming Doctor Who series, Dalek Universe. Stand by.
Hello, this is Catherine Tate. Donna Noble is listening to Geek to Me Radio. Donna Noble has been saved. Donna Noble is listening to Geek to Me Radio. Donna Noble has been saved. Donna Noble is listening to Geek to Me Radio. Donna Noble has been saved.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio, the show that would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, and of course, Marcus Theaters, the official movie sponsor of Geek to Me Radio. If you are anything like me, you are glad that movie theaters are back. Make sure you're going to see movies. I know a lot of studios are holding off on releasing their movies. That doesn't mean that these movie studios aren't open for business. We've gone and seen Empire Strikes Back, 40th anniversary. It's a great time to go see that film. Never a bad time to see it on the big screen. Go to the website, marcustheaters.com. Check the listings, see which one is open near you, and find out what's playing. Always something to be had. They've opened safe. They've opened effectively with social distancing, contactless pickup for your concessions, and new and improved safety measures. I felt perfectly safe. The people I've gone with have felt perfectly safe. And if you're worried, I get it. Check it out for yourself. Go to marcustheaters.com, see what all they've done, pick a movie, and go see it. You can order your concessions through the Marcus Theaters app. Get them contactlessly at the location you go to. A good time is had by all. MarcusTheaters.com. Very proud to have them as the official movie sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. We are going to go right into our next guest. Right now we're talking with author, actor, prolific performer, Jane Slavin, all about her career. Jane, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I appreciate the time today. A lot of exciting stuff happening at Big Finish, and you've been in the thick of it for quite a while now. We had Jason Hegg-Ellery on the show back in February at Gallifrey 1. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Big Finish.
How did I? It was 10 years ago, roughly 10 years ago. David Richardson called my agent and said, did I want to do a Doctor Who with Tom Baker? And obviously, the answer was going to be yes. And I thought this was wonderful. I wasn't really aware of the Doctor Who. It had not been a family thing for me, the Doctor Who universe. But I was aware of Tom. He had been my doctor, and I wasn't aware of Big Finish at the time. they'd been going 10 years. But I went along and just thought it was the most wonderful, crazy, fabulous experience. It was Tom's, I think it was only his second one that he'd done ever.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of started together. It was great. And it was lovely to meet David Richardson for the first time, because he became a great friend. And they're all just, I feel like they're part of my family now, if not my most of my family's actually dead. So, they've done really a good job in replacing them. She said flippantly about all the deaths.
Well, as long as you have someone there to fill that gap, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I agree. And they're just amazing. They're all amazing people. They all fill, really wonderful roles in a person's life. There's a place for them all.
And so you obviously acting alongside Tom as companion and Kelso. You've also written for Big Finish, both some Doctor Adventures, Transference, starring Alex Kingston. How did the transition happen for you from acting in these audios to writing them? Well,
David Richardson knew that I'd written a novel. I think maybe even Tom told him, or anyway, he found out I'd written a novel and he then read it and he really enjoyed it. And he asked me to do the audiobook and then said, do you write any scripts? Have you written any scripts? And I said, I'd love to write some scripts, because they were starting the Big Finish originals. So that included At-a-Girl and Transference and various other things. And then he asked me to would I write an episode of Survivors, which I was very excited by. And that's still one of my favorite things to work on, because I loved writing the story. They give you free rein pretty much. You have to clear everything with them first, but they don't give you the idea. You can come up with the idea yourself. So it was really exciting, and I got to be in it, and I got to ask Wendy Craig to come and work for Big Finish, she was one of the greatest influences on me as an actress, because she was we had a long playing record of her reading stories that my parents, when they couldn't be asked, reading me a story, which wasn't very often. They were quite good like that. They were both teachers. But when they couldn't be asked, they would put this long playing record on by my bed, and it was Wendy Craig in Front of the Children, it was called. And so I grew up with that. And then when I had my own baby, I played the same record to her, and we listened to it again. And I still know all the words to those stories. So that was fantastic. Getting Wendy in was just, so I got to work with her and write her part. I wrote the part of Elsie for Wendy. I didn't even think she'd be able to do it. I thought, she's probably busy. She's been in Oscar-winning films, for goodness sake. So, and I called her up and she said, "Oh no, I'd love to do it." So yeah, it's great.
That's why you always ask. It can't hurt.
That's what I said to Ken, the director, because he said, "Well, we might not." I said, "Is it okay if we ask Wendy?" Because obviously it's up to the director, not the writer, who gets cast. But Ken's fantastic. He takes suggestions. He's really open to. He just wants the best show. He's a brilliant director and a lovely guy. And he had said, "Excuse me." He had said, Wendy, there's a good chance she's not going to be able to do it, or she'll be unavailable, and I wrote to her agent and said, I've written this script. It may be that you are unavailable, but I would love you to read it anyway, just because it is an absolute homage to you and to those stories I was read as a child. And she phoned me and said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'd love to do it." And I said to her, I said, it's not that much money, Wendy. And she said, well, how much does a woman need?
Great answer.
I know. And she came along and did it. It was, phenomenal.
And the funny thing is, too, from people I've talked to who are Big Finish or Big Finish adjacent, I've never heard anything but professionalism, positivity from everybody associated. Even Jason Hegg-Ellery says we haven't had anybody really say no yet. People who are familiar with it want to do it.
I know. And also, if they do get someone who says no, it's usually someone who doesn't know anything about it, because there've been a couple of people. They've said, oh, do you know this person? Could you, could you ask? And once you say to someone, you know what, just go and try it for a day, you will not look back. You'll just love it. Plus, they do really quite a nice lunch. And yeah, and I've never known anybody not have a nice time. And it makes for quite a boring podcast, because I did a podcast the other day, and I thought I sound like I don't know how much I can swear on this, but anyway, it didn't sound great, because I just thought we're just constantly praising these people. But it's the best job in the world. It really is.
Yeah, Paul McGann said, not only is it the best lunch, I had got it on tape. He invited me for lunch sometime, so as soon as I make it over there, I'm going to be popping by, knocking on the door. So.
Oh, fantastic. I'd love to do a Paul McGann one. I've not, he offered me a job on a TV show he was directing, and I was unavailable, so I couldn't do it. So I'd love to be in one of his Doctor ones.
And you've worked with, we mentioned Tom Baker. I believe you worked with the sixth Doctor, Colin Baker. I think you did one with the War Doctor. And you're getting ready to do one. I think you may have done it and just hasn't been released yet. The 10th Doctor for Dalek Universe.
I know. I'm so excited. Yeah, we've already done that. It's all in the can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Waiting on the release.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't tell you anything about. I'm terrible at spoilers, so I can't tell you anything about that.
No problem. Yeah, we look forward to seeing it. If you feel like dropping a spoiler, I'll say I didn't hear it from you. But we'll.
Yeah, right.
But that's got to be so exciting, because when you're doing these and you're performing in them, are you able to shut off the writer part of your brain and just totally be this is what I'm doing, or does the writer part of your brain come in and say, I think I'd rather say it like this? Do they give you any kind of leeway as an actor, or is it strictly by the script?
We'll pause, take our next break, come back, and chat more with actor Jane Slavin. Stand by.
Hello, my name is Sylvester McCoy. I want you to listen to Geek to Me Radio. Otherwise, if you don't, I'll cry.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. Talking this segment with actor Jane Slavin about her work doing the Big Finish audios, and we asked her, as an actor and who someone who has also written several of these, does she turn off the writing part of her brain? Is she able to play these just as they're written?
It's always strictly by the script with Big Finish. These writers know far more about it than I do, particularly Doctor Who. And, the script editors that I've worked with Matt Fitton and John Dorney. And, Matt especially, Dorney, obviously, as you know, is a stunning writer and really knows his stuff. So why would you want to muck with that? Why would you want to mess around with it? And I think as a writer as well, if I've deliberated over a line and made it as good as it could possibly be, I don't want some actor to come in and shuffle it around, because it's written that like it is for very good reason. So yeah, no, I don't mess around with the script.
Gotcha.
Really, ever.
And working on Big Finish, obviously you've done a lot of TV and film as well. big projects like Peak Practice, Casualty, Coronation Street, which was huge, Doctors, Harley and the Davidsons. When you obviously it's very different doing the actual on-camera acting versus the audio, but I imagine there are some similarities that overlap. Talk a little bit about, as far as your particular approach to acting, what you find to be the biggest difference, and what is the most common thread similarity.
The biggest difference is you don't have to learn radio. So when you're doing radio or audio, you've got the script in front of you. So that's the biggest difference. And obviously theatre, you have the whole rehearsal. You have 3.5 weeks to have this character, you embody this character, hopefully. But the actual process itself is the same, because it's all about deceit, isn't it? It's all about lying and making someone believe that these words are just coming out of your brain and not from someone else's, and not sounding like you're reading or you're speaking someone else's words. They are actually yours. So the process is the same, really. It's all about being absolutely truthful while telling a big fat lie.
A good way to put it. That's exactly right. Yes. And working on The Big Finish, you actually predated Big Finish with your work on Paradise of Death, starring the great John Pertwee for that 5-part BBC radio drama. So I guess having worked on that and then making the transfer to Big Finish a few years later must have seemed very familiar and comfortable for you.
Well, yeah, except that when I arrived at Big Finish, you see, I've done tons of radio, like, I don't know, 300-400 plays maybe, before Big Finish. So I was expecting it to be the same, and I came with my hard-soled shoes because, normally when you're doing a radio, you're in a studio and you are with 6 other people in a scene round one microphone, really pretty much acting the scene out. And with Big Finish, it's very different. You're in booths on your own in isolation, because obviously they have a totally different type of sound engineer,
right,
who makes a different landscape from 6 very separate voices. Whereas at the BBC, when you do a radio play, you're all in the same room, and they might treat the room, but they wouldn't treat the voices. So the Paradise of Death, I was expecting the Larn the Sands of Time that I did with Tom. I was expecting that to be similar, and I turned up fully expecting that, and then they put you in this box almost on your own with a set of headphones, which you adapt to really quickly, and also it feels like it's quite intimate. We've just got headphones on. You must feel it too when you're doing your podcast.
Oh, sure.
Because you can see the person even though they're not there.
Yeah,
it's like being on the phone. Nobody sits on the phone and struggles to chat or envisage the person they're speaking to. So it's the same as that. It's so it's different, but we all adapt quite easily, because most of the people who do Big Finish have also done a ton of radio as well. So the first time it's really new to them, and then duck to water, really. Right.
And we mentioned you've obviously worked extensively with Tom. You've worked with Colin Baker, the great John Hurt, and then of course with now David Tennant. You've mentioned in other interviews you've tangentially known, like obviously Sylvester McCoy. You've done a different non-Doctor Who related project with Peter Davison. Is there
you've so done your homework, haven't you?
I try my best to get on my
I'm going to have to share some. I have to find a secret or something and tell you a secret if you know everything. You're right. I've worked with Peter on a different project.
Is there a Doctor you haven't worked with yet that you're dying to work with? You mentioned Paul McGann, but is there? Have you, obviously, if you haven't worked with another Doctor, you'd like to be part of their audio dramas?
I think it's probably important, really, that I work with them all now.
Yeah, may as well.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Peter Capaldi. I'd love to work with him. And also, I'm sure people thought Chris Eccleston would never come on board.
It's very exciting.
Given his history. So it's so exciting that he's doing it. And I really rate him as an actor. I'd really love to work with Chris. And we're both from Manchester. So yeah, I think it's only fair that we do work together.
Absolutely. I just finished his autobiography, I Love the Bones of You. Brilliant, and all just gut-wrenching too. I mean, it's a visceral, emotional read. So for anyone listening right now who hasn't read Chris Eccleston's book, please go out and get that. We'll put a link up to that in the show notes as well. But yeah, he's just, the way he approaches acting is quite a bit different from the way a lot of people do it.
Yeah, I think he's also brilliant example of what it is to grow as a person and what it is to have redemption and to get better and to you become a better human. Hopefully we become better humans as we grow. It doesn't always happen. I mean,
right.
Look at Donald Trump, but he's obviously gone the other way. But Chris is just, I've not read his autobiography, but I've heard, he talks about his struggles. And I think that's a really, really brave thing to do. It shouldn't be brave, obviously, but it is brave, especially for, I was brought up in the same part of the world as Chris, and it was never, Northern men were not meant to show vulnerability.
Right.
They weren't brought up to show vulnerability. So it's really wonderful that he's found his way through all the things and he's such an amazing actor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'd like to work with Chris, and I'd like to work with Peter Capaldi.
Do you think Ann Kelso would be a good fit for the Ninth Doctor, or would you like to take on a new companion role or something else?
I think I'd love to go. Yeah, I'd love to be 12 different companions. I think we're probably pushing it a bit. There was some guy on Twitter said, I mean, I don't get many trolls, but there was some guy on Twitter when it was announced that David and I were doing this 10-part series together, and he said, I've had enough of bleeding Jane Slavin. She's in everything.
Everyone has a critic. Everyone's got to be a critic.
I know. So I just tweeted a reply, thanks, love. The big love heart. But yeah, no, so I wouldn't actually care if I was that overexposed. If it meant I got to do a series with Peter Capaldi or
Sure.
Chris, that'd be great. I think I could do Ann Kelso, Anya Kingdom, one or the other would be perfect match for those boys, don't you?
I would agree. Why change it if it's not broken? Let's let Anne have a go.
Exactly, and you've got a lot of a lot more of Anya Kingdom to come with the David Tennant series.
Okay.
So, so we'll see. Would we want some more of her? I think I would.
And we're going to take another quick pause, come back for our next segment here on Geek to Me Radio. Please stand by.
This is Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
And we're back for our final segment here on Geek to Me Radio, chatting with actor Jane Slavin all about her work in the Big Finish series. So much great things that she's done, so many great projects. But we were talking with her about, right before we went to break, about having David Tennant in her wardrobe.
And besides the Dalek universe, which you won't give us any spoilers for, is there?
Fortunately, I'm quite good at erasing it. It's erased. I can't even remember the titles. Someone said to me the Dalek universe a few weeks ago, and I thought, was I in that one? I'm terrible at just forgetting which ones I've been in, so I couldn't actually reveal anything, even if you wanted me to. All I know is that I loved doing it, and David Tennant is just brilliant, and it's moving and funny and exciting and scary, and it's just everything. I mean, God, those scriptwriters they went above and beyond, I think, and I felt like we had the best time.
I've never been let down by a Big Finish production. I've even some of the ones that they'll have on sale occasionally. We're like, yeah, I'll get a try. It's only $1.99, and it blows me away each time. It's brilliant.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, well, that's lovely to hear.
Definitely. And so obviously we'll look for Dalek Universe. Right now I know they're into the huge Time Lord Victorious saga going on right now across the comics with Titan Comics and the Big Finish stories and everything. Where else can people look for you and keep up with what you've got going on?
You can always find me on Twitter. I guess you'll find me on Twitter, and then from there you'll everything else will follow, because I'm sure I update. Actors at the moment, that everyone's divided about whether you should share when you're working, because everyone's desperate. But I think share away. I see that some of my friends are working and filming, and yeah, we feel jealous, and it's you just that, I'm being left behind. Everyone feels that. And I think embrace the jealousy, but also just be thrilled. And thank God it's someone and not just some, stranger who's not been very nice to everyone. It's lovely when, so I think, yeah, I do share stuff when I'm doing something exciting. Although it's very hard with Big Finish because you've got to keep silent about everything. So I didn't even tell my friends when I was recording with David Tennant.
Oh, so now they know, and they're like, how could you not have told us?
I know.
But those are the best kind of secrets, the ones that like you really want to tell but you can't. Those are always the most exciting though. So that's great that everyone knows now that that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got also when I was first offered Ann Kelso and they told me they'd written it for me, they said, oh, but you can't say anything and I think it was like 2.5 years or something. And I said, I can't tell anyone. So I told my daughter, and it meant absolutely nothing to her. I think she was about 10. And she was like, oh, yeah, great. Yeah, never heard of, she didn't know what it was on about. And I told my dad, who was completely thrilled. But then it was, 2 years basically without being able to tell anyone. So this was amazing because we recorded it, and then within about a month, 2 months, it was announced, and they were already doing the artwork.
Wow. That's that. Yeah, you don't have to keep it as long. That's a little nicer at least.
Yeah, exactly. Because you want to share these things. You're so proud of it,
Of course.
You just want the world to know. Like, yeah, it was me. I was in my wardrobe with David Tennant.
If you say it like that, that will definitely raise some eyebrows.
I know. I'd have to apologize to Georgia. I'd never compete with Georgia. Yeah, she was also in the wardrobe.
Yeah, if I do, I've not had David Tennant on the show yet, but if I was to ever have David Tennant, I'm sure I would not be able to keep that a secret either, so I don't blame you.
No. Do you know what? He's been in the wardrobe with everybody this lockdown because he's been so prolific. He's worked so hard, and he's just, he seems to put just such an enormous amount of effort and care. It's the care he puts in, because he makes it seem effortless, but he thinks about the scripts, and it's important to him. It's wonderful, because you don't want to work with someone who's just phoning it in, as it were, even though we are all technically phoning it in at the moment. You want to work with someone that it matters to.
And I'm sure if he doesn't take it seriously, he'll get berating from his father-in-law. So, there's always that to look at.
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely delightful. I loved chatting with you. Continued success to you, and we'll be keeping up with you. Again, Jane Slavin, you'll watch for Big Finish, Dalek Universe. Please, if you haven't experienced Big Finish yet, go on their website. They always have deals going, and there's never a bad story to be had, especially if Jane's been writing it as well. Jane, thanks very much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Hey, it's my absolute pleasure.
That's going to do it. Another show in the books. My thanks again to New York Times bestselling author Kyle Higgins. Make sure you go on Kickstarter and back The Trap. He would no doubt appreciate it, as would his collaborator Lance Briggs and all those wonderful artists. Thanks again to Jane Slavin, a beautiful person. Love talking to her and her exciting career on stage, on film, on Big Finish. So that's going to do it for us. Until next week, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch I zombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Gallifrey. Good night.
Hi, this is James Enstall, host of Geek to Me Radio, and in honor of my favorite Themyscirian, I've decided to become an Amazon warrior.
Hera, give me strength.
The next time you want to buy something from Amazon, go to geektomeradio.com first and click on our Amazon affiliate link. Simply shop like you normally would, and when you check out, a small percentage will go towards supporting the show. So remember, the next time you want to search Amazon for the latest Wonder Woman graphic novel or parts for your invisible jet, click through from geektomeradio.com first.
The world was in peril. Would you have me stand by and do nothing?